Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I hope you've all managed to take a quick breath between our sessions this morning. There's already been so much food for thought. I am joined now by Liv Torc, who is going to tell us a little bit more about her High Flu project and using online art and spoken word to help people's mental health. Thanks very much for joining us, Liv.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thanks very much, Steffi, and thanks to the NRTF for inviting me here. I'm very excited to be here. I can't see you out there, but I know you're there. I brought the bunting because I think that's important, right? So, you know, let's jizz it up a bit. I want to talk to you about making a difference using art during lockdown, and a project that I sort of spearheaded called the High Flu Project. And I'm going to start with a poem because I think that would be nice. I'm a spoken word artist based in Frome in Somerset. I also spent 10 years working for Take Art, who run the Somerset Rural Touring Scheme. So I've got a bit of insider information on how it all works. So it's really extra brilliant to be talking to you now. So during lockdown, I was asked by the BBC quite early on to write a poem based on how people were making a difference across the region. And I know there was a poet from each region asked to do this. So we sort of looked into all the community activities and we wrote a poem about it. And I'm going to start with that poem. And it's called, appropriately enough, How to Make a Difference. You get up. You don't even have to get dressed. Just press your hand to your chest, feel your breath and your heart. That's a start. And sometimes your heart will want to be quiet or sing every night to the stars, transcending the roofs and snugly parked cars, so the double glazing of neighbours feels less like steel bars. You make a difference by clearing the table, sewing medical scrubs, delivering the NHS food in takeaway tubs, Zooming your parents, shaving your head, planting carrots and peonies in your raised flower bed. Every clap, every seed, every smile, every time you stand to the side or walk single file, you make a difference. By sitting down with your kids and exploring their minds, letting them chalk rainbows outside of the lines, by chatting to neighbours you never spoke to before, and thanking the postman as he hovers 6 foot from your door, by opening the window with the radio on and letting the news of community swirl in the air with the trill of bird song. You make a difference when you roll up your sleeves, let yourself grieve, do whatever it takes to help yourself and others to cope. It's a lot about service, but it's a lot about hope. And I wanted to share that with you because I want to talk to you about how I, as an artist, made a bit of a difference to quite a few people during lockdown, and how I'd like to continue to make the same sort of difference. So I made a project called the High Flu Project. I'm going to go on to my very exciting PowerPoint presentation now. So I'm going to share my screen and do all the things I was told to do. So you should be able to see my screen now. And I'm going to do this, and here we are. So Project High Flu. And Project High Flu was supported by National Poetry Day and the Forward Foundation, but it wasn't when I started it. So I can move this. Excellent. So I'm going to talk to you about the power of poetry to change lives, especially during difficult times. I'm going to talk to you about my project, and I'm going to get you having a go at writing a high flu. I think they're quite easy and fun to do, but it's a really good practice to have a go. And I'm going to talk also about my ideas for taking the project and turning it into a touring show. And I'd love to get some of your feedback on that or any questions you might have at the end. So first thing, the power of poetry to change lives. And I'm sure you've all been talking about mental health already a lot today, but I work a lot with adults with mental health using spoken word and adults with learning difficulties. And there is an immense transformative thing that happens when you would somehow write down how you're feeling in a creative way, share that with people and have that validated, have an audience for that. It really does. It is so powerful for people. So poetry and being able to do that, it gives confidence, it encourages communication, and it fosters your creativity, and it helps build communities. It helps bring people together with a shared experience. And just a little sort of fact is that during lockdown period, there was a 15% increase through Instagram, but also across social media on people using the hashtag poetry, people sharing poetry online with each other, which is quite significant. So what is a high flu? A high flu is a haiku. A haiku, a 3-line poem of 575 syllables, written during a global pandemic, often presented with a photograph taken the same week. So it's a haiku about, in this case, coronavirus, and the high flu name, is a bit of a play on words. And a very good poet friend of mine who often does rural touring, Johnny Fluffypunk, who I work with a lot, had a series on called Baiku, which was all haikus about bikes. So I kind of looked at how he did that and I played on that word. So the high flu is about that. So
Liv, sorry to interrupt. Your screen is currently showing as blank white to everyone, and people are asking if that's supposed to be happening.
No, it's not showing that to me. How weird. Oh, I don't know what to... Is it still doing that? I'm going to stop the share and try again.
So you are sharing the whiteboard.
Oh.
So if you want to go back in and share...
Error.
No, you're totally fine, mate. If you jump back in.
Can you all see that?
I'm
so sorry, everyone. It was really, they were quite, I spent all that time making those slides. So you didn't miss anything exciting. In fact, this is the first exciting slide. So this is the What is a High Flu? A haiku, a 3-line poem. And it's set there, as you see, against some medical scrubs. But this is an example of a high flu. This is an image taken during lockdown and with a haiku written. This one's written by Steve Pottinger. It's been a dark time, but this morning in blue skies, a swift brings summer. That was about halfway through the project. And here is another one towards the end. So this is an example of a haiku. So high flu. So I'm going to explain to you how the project came about. So when we first went down into lockdown, I asked on Facebook, my friends, if they could tell me how they were feeling, because, it was a really odd, strange, horrible time, as you all remember. And as a writer, I found I couldn't personally write about it. Everything was moving too quickly. Everyone was in a state of shock. I couldn't pin down any of my ideas. I couldn't tell the story of what was happening because it was so new. No one could tell the story of what was happening. So I was sort of looking, and I wanted to desperately try and tell the story, but I couldn't do that alone. Sort of my brain was very fractured as well. I could have a lot of thought, and I think that sort of consistent thoughts, I think that shock does that really. So I asked on Facebook for people to tell me how they were feeling, but to tell me in the form of a haiku, because I didn't want to read through lots of stuff as well. And the response was amazing, and I got some really brilliant ones and some really funny ones. And what I noticed as I was reading them is that individually they just sort of gave a snippet of sort of how one person was feeling, but together they did tell that story. They did tell that story of lockdown and what was happening. And I loved that so much, and the storyteller in me really loved that so much that I thought I'd love to make a film of this, and in a way that people can engage with. So I asked people to send me their lockdown photographs as well, so we could have some visuals with the film. And people did loads. They, from their walks and their windows, and that sort of really unusual things, that kind of emptiness, the kind of signs that were going up, the really things that really marked that particular time. So people sent me their photographs as well. So I sort of placed the haikus, high flus, chose which photograph would sort of work interestingly with each one, and made a series of them. And my husband, who is a musician and composer, composed some music to go with it. So all these components came together, and I made a film, and I shared it on social media. And it just got such a lovely response. I mean, loads of people watched it, thousands of people watched it. The people who were in it were so happy. It made them feel so good and really empowered them. And it was just a great thing to do. So I thought, I know, I'll do it again. I will cover the 12 weeks of lockdown, which was what they were touting at the time, that it would be 12 weeks. I would cover that 12 weeks and make a film every week, and that would depict the social history of the times. So every Tuesday I would ask for people to send me their high flus, and then every Wednesday I'd ask them to send me their photographs, and then on Friday I would make a poem out of all the haikus, and on Saturday I would add them to photographs and make the films. And I did this every week for 12 weeks. It was a massive undertaking, but what came out of it was this really fascinating piece of social history. And National Poetry Day got involved because they really saw the benefit of this, and I managed to get a bit of funding from the Arts Council to do it. So, and then Mind came along because we did a special spin-off for mental health on making a difference, on acts of kindness, and also the UK Library Network and the British Library. And I did a talk like this for the British Library, and lots of libraries did their own spin-off Highfleet projects and school projects. So it became a really big thing. So here's, I'm just sort of, these are some examples of them. You can go very simple and funny as well. So I'm going to just show you a couple of the films. I'd like to show you the first film now. This was from week 1, before I got my branding under control. So here we go. I hope you can hear it. So that was the week 1 film, and so it was such a lovely thing to make. By the time I got to week 12, I was getting 400 or 500 Highfleas sent through social media every week. So, and I would sift it down to 25. And I wanted to show you the week 11 film because that came with the Black Lives Matter movement, and each week sort of depicted this kind of history of what was happening. And I think this is a really good one to show towards the end as well. So this is week 11. Here we go. Different music. We had 5 different pieces of music through the course of the project. Sometimes I forget and life seems almost normal, but it's not, is it? The Highfley films really, they told very much of that time. And when you watch them, it really brings that back. And I've been able to share, I made a big film with all 12 of them. And I was able to share that on some talks and with some young people and different kinds of groups. And it seems to engage whoever watches it. I'm just going to say what the Highfley Project achieved. So it was featured on BBC Radio 4's Today programme, and it is one of the only poetry articles that they've ever included, because we were able to make it accessible. There was quite a lot of funny ones, and they were quite short, and we had lots of people who participated reading their own out, so lots of multiple voices. And that was really amazing achievement, I think, to get it on that show. It was the word of the week, Highfley, in the Times and the Sunday Times. We had overall 8,000 contributions of Highfley photographs posted on social media across the world, mainly the UK, but not just the UK. So massive amount of people involved week on week. 600 total contributions from 250 people were included in the film. So 250 people helped make this art. And that's really, so it was a real collaborative effort. 12 films have been made, and actually 13, because I made a special film for the libraries as well, and a big film. More than 25,000 people have seen at least one of the films, and that's more than that now. It's up to about 40,000. It was featured on National BBC Poetry Podcast and local radio. There was a spin-off for Mind Mental Health Awareness Week. It's been used in school competitions, the whole concept. The film was made for the British Library and the library services. And lots of projects from schools and libraries have happened since for National Poetry Day. So it's had a big impact. That's just a little idea on Facebook. Really did sort of make a difference to people, and the sort of positive feedback and case studies that came from that was huge. So what I'd like you to do all out there now is get a piece of paper. I'm going to encourage you to have a go at writing your own Highfley. I'm going to give you about 3 or 4 minutes to have a go at doing that, because we started late. We're running over a little bit, so you can eat your sandwiches though while you're doing this. This is how you write a Highfley. Keep it relevant, by the way. You can write it about how you are now. It doesn't have to be about how you were during lockdown. I appreciate a lot of you, we are still in a kind of lockdown, so that's appropriate. So pause, look, listen. Consider what is really holding court in your mind right now. Notice how you feel about it. Using few words, capture that moment and your feelings. Arrange them in a haiku form of 3 lines of 5, 7, 5 syllables. My trick for syllables, for any of you who are like syllables, is that it's the vowel sounds in words, but either you can count them out on your fingers, which I do, or if you put your hand under your chin, you can, when you say a word, every time your chin hits your hand, it's a syllable. Like hello is 2. It's a good thing to try with kids to get them to do syllables. So count the syllables on your fingers if it helps. Don't rhyme. This is straight from National Poetry Day. They say don't rhyme your haikus. It doesn't work, basically. So have a go. Everyone has about how you're feeling now. They're the instructions. I'm going to give you 4 minutes, and I'm going to play some music whilst you do that. So yeah, give it a go. You can post them in your chat box function if you like when you finish. minute. Okay, so you have a choice now. You can put your hands over your high flues. You can share them now, or you can email them to me. I'm going to be making a poem out of them to share at 3:15 session today. So it'd be really great if we could include some of yours. So you can share them in whatever chat function you have there, or you can email them to me at livtorc@yahoo.com. But we'll explain that in a minute. I wrote one. The world is still weird. Arbitrary annoyance, it's the new normal. That was my one. I really want to quickly just quickly talk to you about what next for High Flu. So I'm putting a bid into the Arts Council to turn High Flu into an interactive participatory touring show, which further maps the social history of COVID times through engagement, through community engagement. The aim is to create a show for village halls and libraries, and for myself, and to tour it with the composer. So it would present a scaled down version of the film, which is currently 45 minutes, but probably scaled down to 30 minutes, which tells the story of what happened. I would do a performance as part of that as well, which would sort of form the emotional arc and talk about my journey through lockdown, which was kind of weird and extreme, and lots of unusual things happened. And there would be a participatory element where I would get the audience to write high flues during the show, and I would put them together and turn them into a piece about their community and perform it at the end of the show. And I would like to have different artistic pieces from each show. So the overall idea is making a big high fluting art piece. So after each performance, I'd like to create a new film or a new art piece based on that community and what they created as part of the show, and put those on a website and map kind of the country with that. So it's to continue making, building on the social history story via community to community. So doing a show, but also a bigger art piece from what we all create. And the ultimate aim is to use live performance and the touring network to share an amazing piece of social history in an entertaining and engaging way, while at the same time creating a UK-wide art adventure that is profoundly healing for those involved. So that's the plan. I don't know if it will happen, but I'd be really interested to know what you guys thought and what you guys thought would work for a show, and if that would work sort of in your communities and in your village halls and libraries. And also any questions that you have. I know we don't have much time. So Steph, I'm going to come out of my sharing. Oh, I'm going to leave this with you though, really quickly, because I think this is really important. This is the last slide of the last film. And nothing makes sense, but in telling our stories, we learn who we are. That is what I learned from this project. That is, we learned through doing this, through those 12 weeks, how we cope with this kind of thing. And I think that's really an important way to end. So yes, so that's my talk. Steffi.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Liv. I was watching those films, trying not to cry, thinking, I've got to come back on and do a Q&A session. But they're incredibly emotional, aren't they? And they, really as you say, they tell a story all together. Do you expect that once you can live tour again, it'll be quite a cathartic piece, I imagine, to get a community together and get them to explore that?
Definitely. What I've learned completely over lockdown is the best way to engage people online and online as well as participation is getting them to help make the art that you're doing. I've done several projects now through lockdown doing that, doing a lot of workshops, and it's so much better than just putting something in front of people and asking them to watch it and take it on. I think actually getting communities involved, writing their own, and then weaving them into a piece of art that they can feel proud of, it will be cathartic. Yeah, it will help them deal with some of the stuff they've had to deal with. So that's kind of my thinking on it.
And do you have a favourite one from all of the ones that you said you've had over 8,000 submissions, so I guess picking one out is difficult, but somebody did ask, so I'm putting that forward to you.
It's definitely the last one that I just showed you, which was the, and nothing makes sense, but in telling our stories, we learn who we are. And that's the one that has played round and round and round in my head. It's like, for me, that's what the project I learned from doing this project. That was the lesson, this crazy time, we can't make sense of it, but actually it helps us make sense of who we are, by how we interact with it. So I think that for me, that is the one, my favorite of all of them, the last slide of the last film.
And do you imagine that the show will have, or the touring version of High Flu will come in different shapes and formats to fit the spaces or the communities that you'll be going in, or do you have quite a strict sort of one form that you're working on?
It's really flexible, and I sort of make films and I kind of live with the musicians, so that really helps. But yes, I will probably make a more contained version of the film, but it might be a case of actually it's better to do an even short. I can have several versions in length depending what suits that space, and I'll have to take my own projector, and my musician is also really good at tech, so that really helps, so can manage all of the tech, because I think it'll be quite a tech show. But I really like the idea of making a community poem from the audience, and whilst they're watching the film, you see, then I can put it together. It also allows me that time to, I think I can do it in about 20 minutes, and then I can perform that to live music as well, so that they come out really feeling that we've made something together, and the film, sort of that time when they're watching that, gives me the opportunity to do that, so it kind of works quite well to have the film in there. But people really love watching the film. It seems to have a really, powerful impact on people. So I feel confident that the art's already been made in part as well.
It'll be really interesting to see how you said about the statistic about the mentions of poetry going up, and how people do seem to have engaged with that as an art form, how that will transfer into people. Maybe in the past, I know at conferences we talked about spoken word being a confusing term to new audiences and things like that, and how in some ways this has breached that gap for people.
And it's not just, it's a mixture, isn't it? So it's visual, it's photography, it's poetry, it's music, it's film, it's a combination of and we'd also have performance in there as well. It's a combination of arts, and I think that tell a story, and I think it's something people can find accessible. And haikus are short, everyone can do them, and most of them sound quite good because they fit quite a strict structure, so it's quite good, easy to do quite a good one. And I think getting people engaged in doing their own will help them engage with the art form. But yeah, it's a kind of multi-art form thing. So yeah, I'm hoping people found it very accessible, which is why Radio 4 picked up on it, because it was something that sort of more general public could engage with.
We have had, I know you can't see the Attendify chat, but I was checking during the time that we have had lots of people sending them through on there as well. So we'll get those over to you. Could you just repeat again your email address in case anyone wants to send it privately?
Yes. So please send me your haikus, high flus. My children are bashing on the conservatory door at the moment. They've just come back from shopping. Please send me your high flus to Liv Torc, not Lick Talk, as it said when it said Lick Talk session is about to start, which I found very amusing, by the way. Liv Torc, LIVTORC @yahoo.com. If you send me them now, I'm going to try and weave them into a piece to share at 3:15 today, which would be really great.
Speaking of children, someone has just quickly asked, would the tour work for a younger audience? So maybe children or...
It definitely works for teenagers, because I took that presentation to Exeter College and 16 to 18-year-olds, and they really, really liked it. And after watching the film, they all had a go, and some of the, so it definitely works for teenagers, because I've tried it in front of them. I think maybe, yes, it's potential, but I think you'd have to redo it a bit, because I think the whole... how it would have to be more participatory, I think, and a lot of the films are quite adult in theme, so yeah, we'd have to kind of make it more of a a children's version, but yeah, anything is possible.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us, Liv. So Liv will be back at 3:15 this afternoon for our wrap-up session, where we've also got quite a bit of poetry going on. So please do come back then. And also you can go and watch the full film. It is in the conference programme, and I have linked to that in the Attendify chat. But otherwise, I think it's time for lunch. So thank you very much, Liv.
Bye-bye. Nice to see you all.